Good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin formally, let me present the flow of the program. We will begin with a welcome address, followed by the presentation from our guest speaker. Then we shall request the resource person to answer a few questions which have been raised by the attendees. We shall conclude the session with a vote of thanks. No matter how talented or skilled you are, you will never reach your full potential without expert guidance. Students need guidance to explore and plan for their future, and this should be done on their skills and interests. Participation in guidance programs provides academic and career-based experiences, helping them to decide their future.
Good afternoon, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to wholeheartedly welcome dignitaries from the Ministry of Education, Dr. Sivakumar Manikyam, Honorable Chairman, Board of Directors, Indian Schools in the Sultanate of Oman, members of the various boards of directors, CBC officials, distinguished members of the MOE Oman, officials from the Embassy of India, Sultanate of Oman, Mr. Alkesh Joshi, Honorary President of the School Management Committee, Indian School Al-Wadi Al-Kabir, presidents and members of the school management committees of all Indian schools in Oman and from other schools and boards across the globe, principals, vice principals, heads of various departments, coordinators, teachers, parents, staff, and students of all participating schools. Welcome all.
Welcome all once again. Your hosts for this session are Master Aman of Class 9 and Master Timothy of Class 11 from Indian School Al-Wadi Al-Kabir.
Dear audience, it is our pleasure and privilege to have you all here with us on this journey of transforming your dreams into reality. Dear participants, you're requested to fill in the feedback form which will be posted in the description box towards the end of the session. Filling this form is necessary as it would fetch you a participation certificate.
It's with sheer joy and great pride that I take this task of introducing our guest speaker today. He's a man of virtue and simplicity, a living inspiration to our youth. With great honor and pride, I now introduce to you the man whose dedicated actions, services, and contributions have affected change in the mindsets of people. He's none other than Dr. Nasser Al-TAEE. Dr. Nasser Al-TAEE is the Director of Cultural Center and the advisor to the Board of Directors at the Royal Opera House in Muscat. Prior to this, he served as the Director of Education and Outreach at the ROHM. Before joining the ROHM, Dr. Al-TAEE was an Associate Professor of Musicology in the School of Music at the University of Tennessee. He holds a PhD in musicology from the University of California, Los Angeles, where his primary research focused on 18th and 19th century opera, including issues concerning representation, appropriation, race, and East-West relations. Dr. Al-TAEE is an active scholar and educator with numerous talks, presentations, and publications at the local, regional, and international forums. Without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Nasser Al-TAEE. The virtual platform is all yours, sir.
Thank you very much. I hope you all can hear me. It is such a pleasure to be with you, to share with you my experience and my career choices as we celebrate a new generation of graduate enthusiastic students. I would like to thank the committee who worked diligently to make this event a success, and all obviously the students for attending on Saturday, as well as their parents. We know how concerned they are about their children's career choices, and I know how difficult it is to select and to make that commitment out of a myriad of choices and so many events that are happening that are changing our world so quickly these days. I would like to start by giving you some information about the role of music that it plays in our society, in our culture, in our community, and then move into the science of music briefly, and then discuss eventually two successful models who were able to impact our world through music. Music, whether it's in the East or in various parts of the world, has been discriminated against, no doubt, as a career choice. We tend to think of music as a hobby, as something that we do on the side, simply not as a career choice. Yet successful students who are driven with passion and knowledge can be creative, can be prosperous, and can even make more money, as we know, in Bollywood, as music composers, as actors, than anyone else in terms of their career choices. So with all this in mind, I would like to share with you some of the elements that have figured into this, into my choice. Now, I have entitled my talk as Music, Knowledge, and Science, Balancing Passion and Profession. Obviously, I am linking music here with knowledge and science because the stereotypes and the general understanding of music that it is an artistic, creative thing, but it's actually made of science. The organization of sound, the beats, the meter, the pulse, the melodies, the harmony, everything, as we will see, has science behind it. Then the second portion of this is the idea of balancing passion with profession. How can we do something that we live with forever and that we make that choice? It must be driven by passion, because I will come to this, music is about passion. Music has the profound power to move us to tears as well as to bring us to joy. That power to captivate us and captivate everyone else around us is what makes music so powerful. And therefore, if we are able to drive that passion into our career choices, we are sure to succeed. I used to tell my students in the US, how is it, what would make everybody in this place successful? How can you differentiate yourself from others? If we have 10 violin players, or if we have 20 cellists and flute players, what would make you excel more than the rest? There has to be an edge that you all need, that drive, that passion. When you look at this as a career, you lose the emotional side of it. And if it is just a work that you are doing to spend your 8 or 9 hours per day doing the work and finishing, it is not going to make it. And what you need to do here, and I'm urging you, is to make a choice that you are extremely passionate about, that you are emotional about. No matter what it is, everything must start and ends with passion. Once that is in, professions of music now has expanded. You are no longer the only, we are not looking only at instrumentalists who play their instruments, but at the opera house, for example, we have interior designers who obviously set the stage. We have costume, makeup artists. We have engineers of various kinds, whether you are focusing on light or sound engineer. We have managers, because every unit, every department needs an admin person. Financial accountants, you need to have a balanced budget. And every place, including the Royal Opera House, has a budget. It needs to be balanced and secured. We have lawyers who secure contracts, make sure that all the elements are agreed upon between both parties. We have IT folks working to ensure that our system is up and running. Hospitality, who serve food and drinks to rival orchestras and during intermissions for our shows, etc., etc. So this is what makes a Royal Opera House an active place with over 200 people working, all as a unit, despite their various background and careers. Now, all cultures celebrate music in various ways, but no matter what we look at, music has always been at the center of our creative impulses. Our Hindu religion teaches us that the goddess Saraswati, she is the goddess of knowledge, of music, of art, and wisdom, as well as nature. So look at all of these attributes combined together in this single beautiful goddess. She's wearing a white sari to represent that purity. She is holding the veena, this ancient and sublime instruments. From it, dangling the pearls, or what we call for prayers, the pearl of strings that represents wisdom and spirituality. She is holding the book of judgments, a scripture that informs our life. She has 4 arms to represent the various aspects of our human personalities. There's a peacock there that represents pride. She is also sitting on a big lotus that floats in the water to represent that purity. And overall, everything about this goddess exudes beauty and wisdom. You have to balance life in all its aspects, and that is what nature is all about. Nature is the makeup of this entire story, whether music can lead to art and wisdom, the creativity and the celebration of our own life is represented all in this one single painting and in this one single figure. Now, other cultures share the same beauty about music. The Greeks devoted profound interest for music, and they made it as one of the sciences, along with mathematics, geometry, and astronomy. Plato, for example, wrote that the different modes or scales of music, like the ragas in Indian culture, have meanings, and these meanings can make a difference between being plaintive to being joyful to being pride, and obviously sensual emotions here are extremely important. The figure that is important in this case is Orpheus. And so Orpheus was a prophet of great musical skills, and he is immortalized through the story, which I hope you have a chance to read one day, of Orpheus and Eurydice. If you all know this, you will know the power of music. Orpheus, he plays this instrument, which called the lyre. And the lyre has the power to communicate and explain beyond our existence. And the story of Orpheus and Eurydice goes this way. Orpheus loses his wife, Eurydice, on her wedding day. As she was picking cottons from the field, she gets bitten by a snake. Orpheus is distraught. He is extremely destroyed. So what does he do? He does not accept fate, and he chooses and decides to travel to the underworld and reclaims Eurydice. Of course, no one has ever done so. Not a single mortal being has done this ever, to be able to reclaim somebody from the dead. But he took that chance. And because he possessed this power of music, he was able to convince the guards to let him in. And they do let him in with one condition, and that is not to look back at Eurydice. So of course, in this painting, he is shown holding the music and leading Eurydice from Hades, which is the place of dead people. But we know that this is an impossible task. And so what does Orfeo do? He violates that one single condition. He looks back at Eurydice, wondering if she is still following, wondering if she is there, and he loses her forever. Now, this is a story about fate, about life in general, that nobody is able to live beyond their own time. But it also talks about the power of music, how Orpheus, through music, was able to do the impossible. And because of this, Western musicians, when they started to write opera, they looked to this story as an inspiration. And sure enough, the first ever written opera in our history, written by Monteverdi, Peri, and others, were based on the music and the story of Eurydice. Jewish and Christian traditions have also prophets and musicians. This is King David, who established Jerusalem. In Arab, Islamic, and Sufi music traditions, Jalal ad-Din al-Rumi, very famous poet in the Islamic faith, established the dance of the whirling dervishes, saying that through dance, one can obtain this unity with God. And so here we can find similar associations as that of the goddess. The white robe symbolizing purity, the spinning of the whirling dervishes represents the universe. The right hand is always looking up to heaven. The left is always reminding us that we belong to earth. And because of this, music really has that power to possess, to take over, and really move us into places that no one else can do. And because of this, we have terms like ecstasy and tarab and extreme joy, extreme pain that can be only felt with music. When I listen to music, sometimes as I am driving, I miss the point of arrival. Sometimes I am forced to stay in the car for maybe 10, 15 minutes until that piece is finished. So what makes us do that? It is the power of music. My journey started in the 80s. I was a person who came in from a family that was so much focused on culture. But I wanted to do something else. Instead of writing poetry like my uncles and my brothers and my family, my father, and journalism like my uncle again and other brothers who endeavored into this, I wanted to do something completely unique. I traveled all the way to the United States to study music. Now, no doubt, many of my colleagues, there were maybe 10 of them on that airplane, ridiculed me for obvious reasons. They thought that I was going too far and just to study music, which they saw as something on the side that they could do. And I took that as a challenge. I never allowed anyone to keep me from that goal. I was not thinking about my career. I was not thinking about how much money I will make because of my degree, but I was moved by two things: my passion for music and my dedication to prove everyone wrong. I went to the University of Washington in the upper Northwest, in the state of Washington of the United States. I studied at the University of Washington. I graduated from there. I obtained a full scholarship to study my master's and PhD at UCLA, University of California of Los Angeles. And when I graduated, I joined the faculty of the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. I taught there for about 8 years. My book, Representation of the Orient in Western Music, Violence and Sensuality, came out of London in 2010. And that's when I heard that Oman was building a state-of-the-art Royal Opera House. And then I decided to come in and be part of this amazing organization. And I've been there for the last 10 years. This is some of the things that I do. As a musicologist, I studied history, and I focused my history, the history of music, history of opera, and to be specific about Viennese opera, which plots deals with the Orient. Now, you all know Scheherazade, you all know Carmen, you all know maybe Turandot, Madame Butterfly. All of these operas take place in the Orient or in the East as they saw it. Lakme takes place in India. So that fascination of the European composers and culture with the civilization of the Orient, that was the object of my study. So I go around the world giving talks and papers in conferences and meetings. I am very active in the media. I also give a pre-performance talk before the opera, explaining what it is about, the significance of the music, how can we engage with this body of music that we may or may not know. So the Opera House, as you know, opened in 2011. And in 2019, we opened another smaller theater venue for the arts called the House of Musical Arts. And as you can see here, they are connected with a bridge. So if you go through Kharijiya Street in Qurum and Sarouj, you will see that the Royal Opera House would be on your left and the House of Musical Arts on your right, and they're connected with a bridge. What we do in the Opera House is we host operas. Operas basically are plays that are sung throughout with a full orchestra. So it requires all of these props, like theatrical props, sceneries that change from one scene to another. We do ballet, which are musical dances. They communicate the story through dance and body movement. We have concerts with symphonies, orchestras. We have one of the most beautiful organs in the world. It's definitely one of the largest moving organ in the world. It weighs about 50 tons. It has more than 4,250 pipes. We do world music from all over the world, Arab concerts, and Zakir Hussain, if you know him, as Dr. Subramaniam, Indian concerts as well, because the Indian community makes up a big part of our society. We also have tours. Our house is open for individuals who wants to come in and visit, tourists from, let's say, 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. except Friday. Here we host open house, and you should know Ashok, our famous magician, who always entertains the kids during the open house. These are pre-performance talks, and we also offer every year special events for our students. This is an opera that is interactive, where we teach the students about the story, what to expect, and then eventually they come in and participate in the educational opera. So there are tremendous opportunities. There is a tremendous role that the Royal Opera House plays within our society, and not just a place where people play music, but it's a place of culture, and it's a place where technology also shines. I don't need to say much about this section, but music is not just about the emotionality that it makes us feel, but it is based upon science. That science that the Greek perfected in the human beings as a model of beauty and harmony. That harmony is transcended through music. Pythagoras was a scientist who set forth the study of music as science, and then eventually he divided the notes according to their importance, came up to ratios, the most important of which is the 3:2 ratio, which represents the dominant or the fifth interval as the consonant that produces perfect harmony. Now, when we tune our instruments, we are also tuning them to certain ratios. Each note has frequency that makes it what it is. And the standard is the A at 440 hertz, and that became standardized throughout the world. And as you can see, every single note has its own frequency, and that's what makes it a different note from the other. Now, when we write scales, when we write pitches, when we write ragas, they are all governed by intervals. And these intervals are separated from one another by distances and notations. Harmony can be also mathematical. What makes a good harmony? What makes a dissonant harmony? All of these notes are grouped together based on their harmonic qualities. So they could be appealing, or they could also be unappealing, depending on what the composer wants to show. Now, obviously, rhythm can be duple and it can be triple. You can say 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2, or 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. I will show you a clip later on about how complex Indian music can be, where it combines the 2 and 3 together, which is something that we call compound rhythm, that combines triple and duple as well. In Western music, also, there is what they call the devil chord. A devil chord is an interval of a diminished fifth or a raised fourth that was forbidden for many years in Western music. What makes this note so uncomfortable and some to call it the devil's music was obviously a cultural thing. Nobody listened or nobody combined these two notes before, and therefore it was avoided for centuries. In the 20th century, when people wanted to break down all of these rules, this became also a favorite tense chord to represent instability. I want to move now to the final section of my talk, where I talk about two influential masters who changed our perception through music. Ravi Shankar passed away in 2012, but not before he exerted tremendous influence on world music, a genre that was just starting to be to take full fruition in the 1960s. Before that, nobody in the West probably knew much about Asian music, about Indian music to be in particular. And he came because he was a virtuosic sitar player and moved to the West and became extremely influential. Now, we know that Indian music is based on ragas, but what are ragas? This is the definition that Ravi Shankar gives: scientific, precise, subtle, and aesthetic melodic form. that can be descending or ascending, different notes according to each raga, rising or falling, that denotes certain specific feelings. It is the subtle difference in the order of these notes, how you combine them, how you omit some of them, how do you emphasize some of them on a particular note that demarcate one's raga from the other. So it's a bit complex, but when you know, when you live in that raga for a long time, when you listen to it over and over, it becomes like a scale. In Arabic music, we call it maqam. And maqam in Arab, Persian, Turkish traditions is the place where you sit in, where you stay, where you start from. So it is the consonant being a state of being at home. This is a quote that I like about Shankar, where he says, "Music to us is religion. The quickest way to reach godliness is through music. I don't like the association of one bad thing with music." So music is one of these means that connect us with our divine creator. Let's take a look at this video that shows how the West in the 1960s was influenced by these musicians who came from India and took Europe by a storm.
Instrument reached its highest peak. India was peaceful, her art flourished, and music of incredible purity and refinement emerged. Perhaps the most inspired exponent of this great art, in which the single highly decorated melody is sustained above the drone and the rhythm of the tabla, is my friend and colleague Ravi Shankar, the world's outstanding sitar player. He has come here to Gstaad in Switzerland to take part in my annual music festival. Ravi, that was a most happy piece played. Tell us about the rag.
This is a night raga called Rageshri. This particular raga has quite a happy mood, but when played in solo, it can be also very devotional. The same raga sometimes can be also happy if played in a faster tempo.
That depends on the tempo. Does that?
Shall I show
Yes,
you?
please.
Yeah.
Show.
The ascending and descending structure of this raga is very unusual. It doesn't have the fifth at all.
That is unusual.
And it doesn't touch the second note. So it goes like that in the ascending.
Yes. Yet the extraordinary complexity of Indian melodic ornamentation and invention and the rhythmic, I think it is because your music has never been drowned in harmony, that you've kept the clarity and the complexities of the structure. What rhythm did you use in the last
This
one?
was known as Rupak Tal, a cycle of 7 beats divided 3, 2, 2, like din, din, na, din, na, din, na. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You know that each of the sound he produces with his hands has a separate sound syllable.
Yes.
This is how we teach our students also, and it can be written down. You know, our whole system is an oral tradition. It's
Yes.
not a written down music.
No, that's why it's alive.
Yeah. So while we teach a tabla student, we have to use a certain sound syllable structure.
Yes.
Like each sound produced with the hand has a separate word for it. Like octave. Ta, tin, na, tit, tit, ti, na. Now he will say something more complex and play immediately with his hand.
So as you can see, this music is extremely complex. And what Europeans were emphasizing, for example, the fifth degree, it's not available in this raga. So that what gives it an extremely exciting characteristics. Notice that he also called it a night raga because this is a piece of a combination of melodic lines that are more suitable for the night and not during the day. This is how our ancestors looked at music. They were very conscious about what is suitable for each day, each part of the day. Not all music is the same. And some music has stronger effects to be played at night, others to be in the morning. And this is a science that is probably connected with the stars, with astronomy that we have lost over the years. But our ancestors all had this art of beauty. So what makes Shankar so important to us today? First of all, he brought all of that ancient history. He tells us that it was all transmitted through oral traditions, and this oral traditions must be kept alive. Somebody must invest in this type of wealth of culture, otherwise it will die away. And he was alone messenger who was able to write and compose and play this music and opens the door to the wealth of Indian music that eventually, excuse me, many musicians carried through and brought various cultures, not just from India, but from Africa and various other places as well. I want to also take a look very briefly at one last model, Beethoven. As you know, Beethoven was a German composer who lived at the turn of the 18th and the 19th century. And he was active in the 19th century, wrote 9 symphonies. Most famous is the 5th, which you should all know, with its Fate motive, ta-da-da-dam, right? And then the 9th symphony, which is called the Chorale Symphony, which he wrote, a few years before his death, specifically in 1824. And what makes this symphony so amazing and so great are very few things that I will say it later. But everybody in probably listening now knows the Ode to Joy. The Ode to Joy as a simple folk tune that he employed in his 9th symphony. It's also the first symphony ever to be written with a chorus, because a symphony is usually and typically written for the orchestra. For the first time in history, Beethoven uses the chorus, uses the text to inform this symphony. And now it seems that on every single occasion, whether it's the Olympics, whether it is a great event that is happening in history, we celebrate the 9th symphony and the Ode to Joy. One of the turning points in history of Western music or Western history came in 1989, when East Berlin fell and the wall of Berlin broken, and there came the unification of Germany, which was separate from 1945 after the World War II. That demolition of the wall of segregation to the wall of freedom, prompted an American conductor, to host this great concert in Berlin using orchestras from East and West. And he changed the Ode to Joy to the term Ode to Freedom, and became the anthem that everybody sang to represent this turning point in history where everyone is united. I want to play you just brief part of this music.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, is it possible for you to conclude your session in next 2 minutes because of the paucity of time?
Yes, I will. I will. Okay, so I think you all know how this tune goes. And once again, I ask, what makes this music so captivating? Well, it's about love. It's about the universal message of love and spirituality. In it, Beethoven says, "You million, I embrace you. This kiss is for all of the world. Brothers united above the starry canopy, there must dwell a loving father." Now, if I tell you that this person, Beethoven, was completely deaf at this point, you would know and isolated because of it, you will know the importance of such a message where a person can write such divine music that is living with us almost 200 years later, and he was unable to hear a single note of it because of his deafness. So he is a person who triumphed over adversity, and the same, like Ravi Shankar, was able to send this global music through music, connect people together despite all their differences. Therefore, music, again, has that power to influence us today. Affirming our life, joyful, rising from despair to hope, from darkness to light, and reaffirms our relationship as brothers under one creator. So to conclude then, to the students who are listening today, no matter what you do, education is extremely important. Knowledge is important. You collect knowledge from wherever source you want, but you are also asked to be citizens of the world. Some of you may continue to study in Oman, others may go to India or to Europe, and you all have that responsibility to promote peace, tolerance, and acceptance. And that can only be done by making mistakes, going through trials. As Gandhi would say, freedom is not worth having if it does not include the freedom to make mistakes. So don't be afraid to do that. And no matter what you do everything with passion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was an extraordinary and inspiring session by our honored speaker, Dr. Nasser Al-TAEE. Now, I would like to request sir to kindly answer a few questions put forth by the audience. I would also like to invite the moderator, Ma'am Resham, to proceed with the Q&A session.
Namaste, Marhaba, Dr. Nasser. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. It was so beautiful to see all the slides. You showed us from Goddess Saraswati and the description, then Sufi, and now all the musics. We could see the passion you have for the music. So, sir, can you tell us what inspired you in this field?
Well, I wanted to talk about something that I dearly value, that I hope that I live with every single day. And so when I actually got this invitation, I was extremely excited, but I was a little bit wondering, knowing that our part of the world does not place music in the highest value. And then because reasons I don't understand, but when I looked at our culture, whether it's religion and culture, music was always at the very top. It was part of our souls. It was part of our emotions, but it was also part of our science. All our theorists, whether Hindu, Islamic, various parts of the world, they elevated music to this divine status. And I wanted to come in and talk about some of these values and the power of music that we tend to have lost, and communicate that to our students, that you don't all need to be successful IT or engineers, that there has to be people who would preserve this culture and also build on it and create new music, because we cannot live without music.
Yes, correct. And sir, do you think that music is in the genes now? If your family also influenced you, or it can be built? Like you were playing music when you were in your school? Or
Yes,
during
I
your,
think so.
yeah.
I think you know, every human being starts listening to music before anything else in the world. And that is the heartbeat of the mother in the womb.
Wow. Yes.
When we are in the womb, there is nothing else that we hear except that heartbeat. And that heartbeat is constant. And it changes according to the rhythm of the mother, whether she is rushing, sleeping, walking, that all that they can hear. So we are born with this rhythm inside of us, with this tune, with this music. And it is just a part of us developing it. Now, obviously, some of us are more inclined to be musicians, others not, but it takes both talent and education, like everything else we do, to bring that together.
So which is your favorite music? And who is your favorite musician?
I think this is difficult for me to answer, because from every region, I listen to various type of music. I was also taught not to judge any music unless you understand it completely. You know, every music has beauty in its own. And that's why I tried today to bring a piece from India, but also one from Germany, for example. If I had more time, I would have played various music, and they all have one thing in common. They have the ability to influence us, to unite us as well.
Very nice, very nice. And you, sir, you sing also?
I don't sing. I write music. I give talks. I write papers, research about music. But my daughter is now singing, so I am happy that she is going into that direction.
Oh, great! The musical family. So, sir, what is your goal now?
Well,
Next goal
soon,
for life.
hopefully soon you will see our season opening after 2 years at the Royal Opera House, Muscat. We are also planning to open a music museum, let's say. It is an exhibition about
That's
music that will be open to the public and definitely for students. Sometime soon, we are also opening a music library where our students can come in and enjoy a place to read music and to create music, but also to listen to music that we've been performing in our opera house for the last 10 years. So many exciting things to look forward to.
Oh, that's great. It was so nice to hear from you. More power and more happiness to you, sir. Thank you so much from here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day ahead.
You too.
As we have come to an end of this session, I reckon it a privilege to put my gratitude into words. It's my pleasure to propose the vote of thanks. On behalf of Indian School Al-Wadi Al-Kabir, the organizing team, and the entire audience, let me first express a profound gratitude to His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq for the magnanimous benevolence showered on the Indian diaspora in the Sultanate of Oman. May the Almighty shower abundant blessings on His Majesty and this peaceful and prosperous country of our residence. We extend our heartfelt thanks to our eminent speaker, Dr. Nasser Al-TAEE, for his words of motivation. Thank you, sir, for the truly captivating session. Our deepest sense of gratitude to Dr. Shivakumar Manickam, the chairman of the Board of Directors, Indian Schools in the Sultanate of Oman, and other members of the Board of Directors, Indian Schools in Oman. Thank you, sirs and ma'ams, for your encouraging presence and guidance at all times. A sincere thanks to Mr. Alkesh Joshi, the Honorary President of School Management Committee, and other members of the committee for their overwhelming encouragement at all times. I also wish to take this opportunity to express our heartfelt gratitude to our tower of strength, our beloved principal, Mr. D.N. Rao, honorable principals of all participating schools in the MENA region, vice principals, assistant vice principals, coordinators, supervisors, and the entire teaching community of all participating schools for their support, guidance, and active involvement.
We are indeed grateful to our platinum sponsor, Sadiko, gold sponsors, Jain Group of Institutions, Grey Matters Academics, Sri Ramchandra Institute of Higher Education, and Vellore Institute of Technology. Bronze sponsors, Middle East College, Thapar University, MIT World Peace University, Pune, and Dallas Baptist University. Our digital partner, Spectrum, and our media partner, The Arabian Stories, for their support in making this mega event a tangible reality. I wish to thank each and every student and parent for their valuable presence in making this session of our Global Career Fair, Avenue 2021, a grand event. An event of this kind requires the coordination of a committed team. My earnest and heartfelt thank you to my ISWK team behind the scenes working tirelessly and making Avenue 2021 a tangible reality. Last but not the least, I thank Almighty God for making this session a great success. Thank you all. See you soon for the next session. Take care and have a wonderful day ahead.